This 1984 Washington quarter looks ordinary, but it could be worth thousands. Uncover the untold story behind this rare American coin that collectors are desperately searching for, right now. The year 1984 marked an era in American numismatics that often slips past the casual eye, but within the mintage of Washington quarters from that year lies a story of transition, evolution, and hidden value. The Washington quarter, introduced in 1932 to honor the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, had already become a staple of American coinage, and yet by 1984 it was going through subtle shifts that carried immense historical and collectible significance. When examining the 1984 quarter, we start at the United States Mint, which was then producing coins at three major facilities: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. Each of these played a role in creating quarters that have since become fascinating items for collectors across the nation and beyond. Let us first understand the basic specifications of the coin struck in 1984. The Washington quarter weighed 567 grams, had a diameter of 243 millimeters, and was composed of a copper core clad with a layer of nickel. The obverse featured the classic portrait of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, a design that had remained largely unchanged for decades. Washington's profile faces left, the word Liberty crowns the top of the coin, while the national motto, "In God We Trust," is stamped boldly to the left of his profile. The date 1984 appears at the bottom. The reverse of the coin continues with the heraldic eagle, with outspread wings gripping a bundle of arrows with two olive branches below the eagle. This design, also by Flanagan, symbolized American strength and peace and was a patriotic statement that echoed through generations. The inscription, "United States of America," spans the top with a pluribus unum beneath it, and the denomination, quarter dollar, sits clearly at the bottom. This design was used on all regular issue quarters until the late 1990s, when the State Quarters series began to replace it. To fully understand the history of the 1984 quarter, we must consider its production numbers and mint marks. Quarters struck in Philadelphia bore no mint mark and saw a mintage of over 676 million coins. Quarters from the Denver Mint carried a small d and accounted for over 546 million coins, while those from the San Francisco Mint bore the S mark and were struck, primarily for collectors in proof sets. These proof coins were meticulously crafted with sharp detail and mirror-like surfaces, making them favorites for coin enthusiasts. Despite such high mintage figures, the 1984 Washington quarter holds special interest due to several varieties and errors that have emerged over the decades. Among the most famous is the 1984 P double die obverse. In this variety, collectors have identified clear doubling in the word Liberty and "In God We Trust," particularly visible under magnification. This type of doubling occurs when the die strikes the plancher twice in slightly different positions, causing the letters to appear doubled. This error is not only a fascinating piece of minting history, but also a highly desirable collectible, with well-preserved specimens fetching significant premiums at auctions and coin shows. Another significant area of interest for the 1984 quarter lies in condition and grading uncirculated coins, especially those graded MS-65 or higher by professional services like PCGS or NGC Command, much higher values than circulated counterparts. A pristine 1984D or 1984P quarter in high mint state condition can sell for far more than face value, especially if it exhibits strong luster, no contact marks, and sharp strike details. Collectors also seek coins with full drum lines on the eagle tail feathers, and a strong presence of the mint luster, which can help determine whether a coin has seen circulation. Now, stepping into the world of proof coins, the 1984 S proof quarter was part of the official proof set offered by the U.S. Mint that year, made specifically for collectors. These coins were struck multiple times using specially prepared dies, resulting in sharper features and reflective fields. They came sealed in official U.S. Mint packaging and are highly collectible today, with many examples. graded PR67 and above. Although they were not intended for circulation, they tell the story of the care and craftsmanship that went into producing coins for the collector market. Interestingly, the 1984 quarter falls in a transitional period between traditional coinage and the era of modern collectible series. This means that while it does not bear a flashy reverse design like state quarters, it serves as a final chapter in a long era of classic American design. Its historical context includes the tail end of the Cold War, the rise of Reagan-era economic policies and cultural transformations across the United States. Holding a 1984 quarter is like holding a piece of that moment in history captured forever in copper and nickel. Over the years, many collectors have stumbled upon 1984 quarters in change jars or coin rolls without realizing that some of these coins could hold significant value, not only monetarily but as part of the broader story of American minting. The quarter has always been a workhorse coin, seeing widespread use in vending machines, parking meters, toll booths, and everyday transactions. And yet within this routine usage lies the chance discovery of a valuable error coin or high-grade example. When evaluating whether a 1984 quarter has collectible value, experts recommend first checking for visible errors, then examining the overall condition under good lighting, using a magnifying lens for fine detail. Those that appear promising should be submitted to a professional grading service, which can authenticate and assign a grade to the coin once encapsulated. These coins can be sold at premium prices to collectors who seek to complete full mint sets or error collections. It is also worth noting the role of coin roll hunting in discovering rare 1984. Quarters hobbyists often search through bank rolls of quarters, hoping to uncover high-quality coins or rare varieties. This method has become increasingly popular thanks to social media and YouTube channels that showcase amazing finds, including rare 1984 quarters found in circulation collectors, report finding double-die varieties off center strikes, broad strikes, and coins with retained lamination errors or struck through debris, all of which enhance the coin's value and intrigue. In recent auctions, some 1984 quarters, particularly those with errors or exceptionally high grades, have fetched hundreds of dollars and in some rare cases over $1,000, proving that this coin, while common in number, holds hidden gems for those who know what to look for. Beyond the monetary value lies the historical journey each coin tells, from its creation at the mint to decades in pockets, drawers, and collections, and finally into the hands of those who appreciate their legacy. For new collectors, the 1984 quarter offers a great starting point. It is affordable, accessible, and rich in variety, with countless resources available to guide the search. Numismatic forums, websites, and videos provide endless hours of exploration and education, allowing anyone to become part of the coin collecting community with dedication and attention to detail. Anyone can uncover the mysteries that lie within coins, as simple as a Washington quarter from 1984. Thus, the story of the 1984 Washington quarter is not just about a coin. It is about history, art production errors, mystery, and passion, from the skilled engravers at the U.S. Mint to the collector holding it. Decades later, the coin has traveled across time and geography, carrying silent tales of trade, history, design, and discovery. It is a gateway into the vast and intricate world of numismatics, where each coin is more than currency. It is a story in your hand waiting to be told. If you have a 1984 quarter in your collection or pocket, now might be the time to look at it again carefully, for it may not just be change. It might be a chapter of American history with hidden value and unspoken legacy waiting to be uncovered by you. Imagine holding in your hand a piece of history, a coin that at first glance seems like ordinary pocket change, but when you look closer, you realize it carries the story of America, its economy, its politics, and its culture. This is the 1992 Washington quarter, a coin that may appear simple. Yet behind it lies decades of tradition, design, evolution, and minting history. And in this journey, we will uncover every detail, every aspect, and every layer that makes the 1992 quarter far more than just 25 cents. The Washington Quarter Series began in 1932 to honor the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. It was designed by sculptor John Flanagan, whose portrait of Washington was based on the neoclassical bust by Jean-Antoine Houdon from 1785. For 60 years, the Washington Quarter remained largely unchanged, keeping the same portrait of Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. 1992 was a fascinating year in the life of the Washington Quarter because it came at the very edge of a great transition in American coinage history. It was one of the last years before the United States Mint shifted its focus toward the upcoming state quarter program, which launched in 1992. The Washington Quarter was struck in multiple forms, including the standard circulation-clad quarters, minted in Philadelphia and Denver, and the special proof issues minted in San Francisco for collectors. This was also the very first year when the United States Mint introduced silver-proof sets after decades of absence from regular coinage collectors, had the chance to once again own a Washington Quarter made from 90% silver. These silver proofs are among the most significant highlights of 1992 quarter production, and they became an instant favorite for numismatists who valued both the beauty and the tradition of silver coinage. The obverse of the 1992 quarter still displayed the classic Flanagan portrait of Washington facing left with the word Liberty above, the head, the motto, "In God We Trust," placed on the left, and the date, 1992. Beneath the bust, the mint mark was seen just to the right of the ribbon in Washington's hair for Philadelphia. No mint mark was used, while the Denver quarters carried a D. Mint mark and the San Francisco proofs carried an san, the reverse. The heraldic eagle design remained unchanged, a powerful symbol of American strength and unity. The eagle with wings outstretched perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches. Beneath continued to embody the dual concepts of war readiness and peacekeeping. This reverse design had been used since 1932 and would remain in place until the launch of the 50-state quarter program in 1999, making the 1992 quarter one of the final pieces to carry this long-standing image production numbers in 1992 were substantial. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 384 million quarters, while Denver produced over 390 million. This made the 1992 quarter very common in circulation. However, the San Francisco Mint produced both clad proofs and the first ever silver proofs in this series. The clad proofs numbered in the millions, while the silver proofs were minted in smaller quantities, making them especially desirable today. The silver proofs were struck with deep cameo finishes, creating a sharp contrast between the frosted devices and the mirror-like fields, adding a beauty that made them stand out in collector sets. When we examine the significance of the 1992 quarter, we see more than just numbers and designs. This coin captures the Mint's effort to balance tradition with innovation. The decision to reintroduce silver proofs was a nod to collectors who longed for the classical look and feel of silver, while the standard-clad quarters continued to meet the practical needs of everyday commerce. The year 1992 was also a time of economic change in the United States. The nation was recovering from a recession in the early 1990s and everyday pocket change. Like the Washington Quarter was a constant presence in the lives of millions of Americans. The durability and reliability of the quarter made it the most heavily used coin in circulation, from vending machines to toll booths to laundromats. The Washington Quarter of 1992 was a workhorse of American commerce, while also being a canvas of national pride, errors, and varieties. From the 1992 quarter also fascinate collectors today. Like all coins produced in high volumes, the 1992 quarter saw its share of minting errors, including double dies off center strikes and clipped planchets. Some of these errors have become valuable in the numismatic market, with collectors willing to pay significant premiums for well-defined and dramatic mistakes. Even ordinary 1992 quarters in high-grade uncirculated condition or proof deep cameo silver strikes command collector attention and value. The legacy of the 1992 Washington quarter lies in its unique place in history. It was a bridge between the classic era of Washington quarters with the heraldic eagle reverse and the modern era of the state quarters that would soon capture the imagination of millions of Americans around the country. It was also a bridge between base metal coinage and the reintroduction of silver, a blend of practicality and tradition. So when you look at a 1992 quarter, you are not just looking at a coin, you are holding a symbol of American heritage, a token of transition, and a piece of metal that has traveled through time, carrying with it stories of minting artistry, economic change, and the enduring legacy of George Washington himself. In the next 2 hours, we will dive deeper into every detail of this coin, from its design origins to its production, techniques from its minting facilities to the role it played in commerce, from its errors and varieties to its collector demand. Today, by the time you finish this journey, you will never look at a simple quarter the same way again. Imagine holding in your hand a simple 25-cent piece minted in 1988, a coin that might appear to be ordinary to the casual observer. Yet when you look closer and understand its background, you begin to see that the 1988 Washington quarter represents not only a piece of American currency, but also a chapter in the larger narrative of United States history, coinage artistry, and economic policy. The Washington Quarter series itself dates back to 1932, when the United States prepared to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The Treasury Department and the United States Mint decided that the quarter-dollar denomination would serve as the medium for honoring the first president of the United States. A competition was held, and the winning design came from sculptor John Flanagan, who based his portrait of Washington on the famous bust created in 1785 by the French neoclassical sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon from 1932 until 1964, Washington. Quarters were composed of 90% silver and 10% copper, but with the rising value of silver in the early 1960s, Congress moved to a clad composition beginning in 1965. From that year onward, the quarter was produced with an outer layer of copper-nickel alloy bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its familiar silvery color while eliminating its precious metal content. By 1988, the Washington quarter had been in circulation for more than half a century, and the design, though simple and elegant, had become an enduring icon of American coinage. On the obverse of the 1988 Washington quarter, you find the familiar bust of George Washington facing, left the word liberty arched above his head, the national motto, "In God We trust," to the left of his portrait, and the date 1988 placed below Washington's neck. The mint mark, if present, appears to the right of the ribbon that binds his hair in a queue. During this year, quarters were struck at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, as indicated by the presence of a P or D mint mark, while coins produced in Philadelphia prior to 1980 did not bear a mint mark. By 1988, the P mark had become standard practice-proof. Versions of the 1988 quarter were also struck at the San Francisco Mint, and these proofs display an S mint mark. The reverse of the 1988 Washington quarter maintained Flanagan's original eagle design, an American bald eagle with outstretched wings perched upon a bundle of arrows with 2 olive branches beneath. The design symbolized both readiness for defense and the pursuit of peace. The legend United States of America was inscribed around the top. The denomination quarter dollar placed at the bottom, and the phrase e pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, located just above the eagle's head. From a production standpoint, the 1988 Washington quarter was struck in the hundreds of millions, making it a common circulation coin as part of the broader series. However, the numismatic interest. In 1988, quarters often comes from mint state examples, coins that survived without wear or circulation, As well as error varieties or proof issues, collectors often seek examples graded at the highest levels by third-party grading services, such as the professional coin grading service PCGS or the numismatic guarantee company NGC. In such pristine conditions, values can increase significantly compared to face value, even though the majority of 1988 quarters remain common. The historical context of the late 1980s adds depth to the story of the 1988 Washington quarter. In 1988, Ronald Reagan was completing his second term as President of the United States. The country was experiencing significant political and economic shifts with the Cold War nearing its end, the stock market still recovering from the crash of October 1987, and technology beginning to reshape American life. In many ways, the circulation of quarters, such as the 1988 issue, represents the daily economic activity of an era when people used cash more frequently than they do today. Each coin changed hands countless times at gas stations, diners, movie theaters, and grocery stores before debit cards and digital payments became the norm. This places the 1988 quarter not only as a piece of metal but as a witness to a changing America. In the numismatic world, the 1988 Washington quarter also serves as a bridge between two eras. By the late 1980s, discussions were already beginning within the United States Mint about refreshing the nation's circulating coinage programs. By the end of the following decade, the state quarters program would launch in 1999, transforming the familiar reverse design into a series of rotating commemoratives that celebrated all 50 states. In hindsight, the 1988 quarter stands among the last decade of traditional eagle reverse issues that had defined the quarter for generations. Another important aspect for collectors is the role of errors and varieties in 1988 quarter production. The minting process at such a large scale often produced mistakes that today are highly sought after among specialists. Examples include double-die obverses or reverses off center strikes, broad strikes, and coins struck on the wrong planchet. Such coins, though rare, can command substantial premiums depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the coin when preserved. The proof quarters minted in San Francisco during 1988 are especially notable. These were intended for collectors and were struck with polished dies on specially prepared planchets to achieve sharp details and mirror-like surfaces. In many cases, the contrast between the frosted devices and the reflective fields creates what numismatists call a cameo or deep. Cameo finish modern grading services evaluate these attributes carefully, and high-grade deep cameo proofs from 1988 are prized additions to Washington quarter collections. It is also worth mentioning how the Washington quarter design of 1988 reflects the artistic conventions of its time. Flanagan's original design had been criticized over the decades by some numismatists and art critics who felt that the portrait of Washington lacked strength or classical elegance. Others, however, appreciated its simplicity and directness. By the 1980s, after more than 50 years of use, the design had become so familiar that Americans associated the quarter almost instinctively with Washington's face, creating a cultural bond that made the coin part of everyday national identity. For those who study the economics of coinage, the 1988 quarter also reveals the impact of changing material values. The clad composition that began in 1965 had proven effective in stabilizing production costs. The intrinsic metal value of the 1988 quarter remained well below its face value, ensuring that coins would not be hoarded or melted for profit. As silver quarters had been 2 decades earlier, this cost efficiency allowed the mint to continue striking massive quantities of quarters for circulation, meeting the demands of commerce in an expanding economy. As we move deeper into the significance of the 1988 quarter, it becomes clear that while the coin itself may not be rare or precious in most cases, it carries layers of historical, economic, and cultural meaning that make it a fascinating subject for collectors, historians, and everyday Americans alike. The quarter embodies the legacy of George Washington, the artistry of John Flanagan, the practical, realities of modern coinage, and the lived experience of countless individuals who used it in their daily lives. When you hold a 1988 Washington quarter, you are not just holding 25 cents, you are holding a piece of the late 20th century, a witness to both the continuity of American traditions and the subtle transformations that were reshaping the nation in the years leading up to the dramatic changes of the 1990s. What if I told you that a small, everyday coin from 1989 carries the weight of America's history from its very origins to the dawn of a new era at the close of the 20th century? What if I told you that the Washington quarter of 1989 is not just a piece of change, but a mirror into the country's economy, its minting technology, its artistry, its politics, and even its culture? This is the story of a coin that may seem ordinary, yet reveals extraordinary details when we peel back its layers. The Washington Quarter series began in 1932 as part of the bicentennial celebration of George Washington's birth, and the design selected for the quarter was created by sculptor John Flanagan, whose vision of Washington was based on the bust created by Jean-Antoine Houdon in 1785. The obverse, or front of the coin, depicted Washington in profile with the word liberty placed above his head. The phrase, "In God we trust," positioned just to the left of his chin, and the date of minting. Displayed beneath his portrait, the reverse of the coin carried a majestic bald eagle with outstretched wings, clutching arrows of strength and olive branches of peace, symbolizing the balance between America's readiness for defense and its desire for peace. This design remained unchanged for decades, making the Washington Quarter one of the most recognizable coins in U.S. circulation. By 1989, the Washington Quarter was already in its 57th year of production, and during this time, the coin had survived shifts in metal composition, changes in minting technology, and fluctuations in the American economy. The year 1989 marked a period when the United States was on the edge of major political and economic transformation. It was the final year of the 1980s, a decade defined by rapid technological innovation, the Cold War nearing its end, and the rise of a stronger consumer economy. Coins produced in this year carry within them the context of those times. The composition of the 1989 Washington Quarter followed the standard set after 1965, when the United States Mint officially abandoned the use of 90% silver in favor of a copper nickel-clad planchet due to rising silver prices and the strain it placed on circulating coinage. The clad composition featured an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This ensured durability, affordability, and widespread production, making the quarter a coin of resilience and practicality. By 1989, the clad composition was firmly established, and the Washington Quarter had become a workhorse of American currency, found in every pocket, purse, cash register, and vending machine across the nation. When we examine the minting process of the 1989 quarter, we see that it was produced at multiple mints, including the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. Each mint produced quarters with slight variations, though the design remained the same. Coins from Philadelphia carried no mint mark, while those from Denver bore a D, and San Francisco issues carried an S and were struck primarily for proof sets. The proof quarters from San Francisco were made with sharp detail mirror-like fields and frosted devices, creating a contrast that made them stand out as highly collectible pieces. The Philadelphia Mint in 1989 produced hundreds of millions of quarters struck for general circulation. These coins were workhorses of the economy, and though many survive in well-worn condition, truly pristine, uncirculated examples remain desirable among collectors. The Denver Mint also struck vast numbers of circulation coins, and like the Philadelphia issues, their sheer volume made them common in average condition but scarce in high mint state grades. The San Francisco proof quarters, on the other hand, were produced in controlled numbers and were not meant for circulation. Instead, they were packaged in proof sets, sold to collectors, and are treasured for their precision and beauty. The artistry of John Flanagan's design continued to shine through in 1989, despite being over half a century old. By this time, the design had become a symbol of American stability, yet some critics argued that the portrait had become outdated compared to more modern coinage designs. Nevertheless, its longevity spoke to its popularity and the reverence held for George Washington as the father of the nation. His image on the quarter had become more than just art. It had become an icon recognized instantly across the world. The 1989 Washington quarter also tells the story of errors, varieties, and minting oddities. As with many years, collectors have discovered doubled dies off-center, strikes clipped planchets, and other minting mistakes that make certain coins far more valuable than their face value. These errors remind us that the minting process, though highly industrialized, was not immune to human error and mechanical flaws. Such coins are eagerly sought after by numismatists who treasure their rarity and uniqueness. Beyond its physical characteristics, the 1989 quarter also reflects the economy of the late 1980s. The United States was experiencing a period of relative economic growth. Unemployment was down, inflation was under control, and consumer spending was strong. Coins were constantly circulating as commerce expanded, and the quarter was the coin of choice for vending machines, arcade games, payphones, and toll booths. Its purchasing power in 1989 was stronger than it is today, and holding one could buy more goods and services, making it a powerful and practical part of everyday life. Collectors who study the 1989 Washington quarter often note its position as part of a transitional decade. The 1980s represented the last full era before the statehood quarter program launched in 1999, which would completely change the face of the quarter and ignite widespread public interest in coin collecting. The 1989 issue sits in that transition space where the quarter still carried Flanagan's eagle reverse and represented continuity rather than change. To hold one today is to touch the last chapters of an era before the great wave of modern commemorative coinage began. In terms of grading and values, the 1989 Washington quarter in circulated condition is generally common and worth face value. However, in high mint state grades, especially MS-66 and higher examples from Philadelphia and Denver, become significantly more valuable due to their relative scarcity in pristine condition. Proof examples from San Francisco, with deep cameo contrast, also attract strong collector interest, while mint errors from the year can command premium prices depending on their rarity and demand. To fully appreciate the 1989 Washington quarter, one must see it not just as a piece of currency, but as a document of history. It speaks to the endurance of a design that began in 1932. It reflects the economic realities of a nation in the late 1980s. It illustrates the capabilities and occasional flaws of minting technology. It carries the legacy of Washington as a timeless figure of leadership, and it stands on the threshold of a new era of American coinage as the country prepared to enter the 1990s and beyond. Every coin has a story, but the Washington quarter of 1989 carries a story that blends art history, economy, politics, and culture into a single object that fits in the palm of your hand. And when you trace its history, you discover far more than a coin. You uncover a chapter of America itself.